Every day, billions of people hear the same sound: the crack of a potato chip, the crunch of toast, the snap of a crispy chicken wing. We love that sound so much that entire industries spend millions trying to perfect it. Food companies measure crunch. Restaurants advertise crispiness. People even complain when their favorite foods lose it. But here's the strange part: your ancestors never tasted potato chips. They never ate fried chicken. They never opened a bag of snacks. So why does a modern human brain get excited by a sound that didn't even exist for most of human history? The answer begins tens of thousands of years ago, long before kitchens, long before farms, long before civilization itself, because our love of crispy food may be one of the oldest survival instincts we still carry today. Think about that for a second. A simple crunch might be a message from the Stone Age. Imagine standing in a landscape where every meal matters. There are no supermarkets, no refrigerators, no food delivery. If you fail to find enough food today, you might go hungry tomorrow. For early humans, eating wasn't entertainment, it was survival. And survival depended on making good decisions quickly. A bad choice could mean sickness, poisoning, or starvation. The problem was that food rarely came with instructions. Ancient humans couldn't read labels, they couldn't check expiration dates, they couldn't search the internet. They had to rely on clues, tiny signals hidden in the food itself: its smell, its appearance, its texture, and most importantly, its sound. Now here's the strange part: sound can reveal information before you even swallow a bite. Imagine biting into a fresh fruit. It breaks cleanly, the flesh feels firm, you hear a crisp snap. That sound tells your brain something valuable. Fresh, safe, nutritious. Now imagine the opposite. The fruit feels mushy, soft, silent. Something might be wrong. Maybe it's overripe. Maybe it's rotting. Maybe insects have already reached it. For millions of years, these tiny differences mattered a lot. Researchers believe our brains gradually learn to associate crispness with freshness, and freshness often meant nutrition. The foods most likely to help you survive were often the foods that still had structure, the foods that hadn't started breaking down, the foods that produced that satisfying crack or crunch. This sounds simple, but it may have shaped human behavior for thousands of generations. Over time, our brains became reward machines. Whenever we encountered signs of valuable food, they released feelings of pleasure. Not because pleasure was the goal, because survival was. The people who felt rewarded for choosing fresh foods were more likely to stay healthy, more likely to reproduce, more likely to pass their preferences to future generations, and those preferences still live inside us. But then something unexpected happened. Humans discovered fire. At first, fire changed survival, then it changed food, and eventually it changed our brains. Cooking made food safer, softer, easier to digest, but fire also created something entirely new: crispy surfaces. Imagine an ancient human placing meat near hot coals. The outside begins to dry, the moisture evaporates, a thin crust forms. Suddenly the texture changes. Instead of soft and wet, the food becomes crisp, and something magical happens. The flavor explodes. Scientists now know that heat triggers chemical reactions that create hundreds of new flavor compounds. When food browns, it develops richer smells and deeper tastes. The crispy parts often contain the strongest flavors. So now humans had two rewards happening at once. The crunch signaled quality, and the flavor delivered satisfaction, a powerful combination, one our brains never forgot. Imagine sitting around a campfire thousands of years ago. A family shares roasted roots, pieces of meat, wild nuts. Some bites are soft, others are slightly crisp from the fire. Without understanding chemistry, they discover something important. The crispy bites taste better again and again, generation after generation. The preference grows stronger, not because anyone planned it, because evolution quietly reinforced it. Now, remember this: human beings evolved in a world where calories were hard to find. Every meal required effort. Hunting, gathering, traveling, risk. The brain developed shortcuts, quick ways to identify rewarding foods. Crunch became one of those shortcuts. Even today, the sound itself influences our experience. Researchers have conducted fascinating experiments. People were given identical foods. The only difference was the sound they heard while eating. When the crunch sounded louder, participants often reported that the food seemed fresher and more satisfying. Think about that. The sound alone changed the experience, not the ingredients, not the nutrition, just the crunch. Your brain was making assumptions, ancient assumptions, assumptions that may have helped your ancestors survive. But the story doesn't end there because modern humans did something evolution never expected. We learned how to manufacture crunch. For most of history, crispy food was relatively rare. Then came agriculture, then ovens, then frying, then factories. Suddenly humans could create crunch whenever they wanted. Bread, crusts, crackers, French fries, potato chips, breakfast cereals, entire categories of food built around one sensory experience. And our ancient brains loved it. Food companies quickly noticed. They discovered that crunch wasn't just enjoyable, it was addictive. Not in the dramatic way, people often use that word, but in the sense that crunch increases satisfaction. It makes people want another bite, and another, the sound becomes part of the reward, which explains something many people have experienced. Have you ever eaten chips that went stale? The flavor might still be there. The ingredients haven't changed much, yet they suddenly become disappointing. The missing crunch changes everything, because the experience isn't only happening in your mouth, it's happening in your brain, and your brain has expectations built over thousands of years. Now imagine an ancient hunter returning to camp. The group gathers around a fire, food is shared. Children eat alongside parents. Everyone listens to the crackle of burning wood and the crunch of cooked food. For that family, those sounds meant something important: safety, success, a full stomach. Another day survived. The crunch wasn't just a texture, it was evidence that things were going well. Evidence that the hunt worked, evidence that food was available. And emotions became attached to those experiences: comfort, relief, connection, hope. Over time, those feelings became intertwined with food itself. Maybe that's why crispy foods often feel comforting even today. A crunchy snack during a movie, fresh toast in the morning, the crack of a warm pastry. These moments feel small, but they tap into something ancient, something much older than modern life. Because deep inside, your brain still responds to signals that once mattered enormously, signals that helped humans navigate a dangerous world. Signals that helped families survive long winters, signals that guided countless generations toward better food choices, and all of that history can be triggered by a single bite. Tonight, somewhere in your kitchen, someone will bite into a chip. Someone else will break a piece of toast. Someone will hear the crunch of a snack without thinking twice about it. But hidden inside that sound is a story stretching back thousands of generations, a story of survival, fire, discovery, family, and evolution. Because humans don't love crispy food simply because it tastes good. We love it because for a very long time, crunch was a clue that food was fresh, a clue that food was valuable, a clue that life was a little safer than it was yesterday. And maybe that's the most fascinating part of all. The next time you hear that satisfying crunch, you're not just enjoying a snack. You're listening to one of the oldest survival instincts still echoing inside the human mind.